And here we are. I'm back again. Missed a week. Missed a week getting over the cold. But here we are again for episode 8 of the show. If you're just tuning in for the first time, you have no idea what's going on here. This is my show. I'm your friendly buddy Spider. I've been around a while, you know me. And on this show, I just talk about random stuff that I find interesting, or in this case, delicious. Right? Okay. So, what's tonight's episode about? What is it about? It's about nachos. Nachos, you know what they are, and if you don't, I'm going to tell you. So let's talk about this. My beautiful sound effect. Swing, swing, swing. All right, nachos. What are nachos? First off, nachos are, well, they can be a lot of different things. They can be an appetizer. They can be a full meal. There's even dessert nachos, believe it or not. There's dessert nachos out there. I don't have those very often, but they have them. What exactly are nachos? When you're a kid, like when I was a kid, cheese on chips counted as nachos. If it was tortilla chips, and if there was melted cheese on them, they were nachos. Didn't matter what kind of cheese it was necessarily. Didn't matter what brand of tortilla chips they were. Those were nachos. But nachos are very particular if you want to do it the right way. I mean, I don't always do it the right way. I sometimes just take a bunch of sprinkly cheese from the fridge and just melt it over some tortilla chips, and I'll call it a day, and that's my nachos. But if you want to be real picky about it, then you start with a base of tortilla chips. And it's best to do this in layers, too. It's best to have layers of nachos. So you want to put some chips down. And you can do it where the nachos themselves are self-created. That's where you have the nachos, and then you have a side of queso, which is nacho cheese. Nacho cheese is a specific kind of I don't know if I want to call it Hispanic necessarily. I think it came from Mexico, so I guess Mexican cheese. But I don't know if it's restricted to just the Mexican nationality. But it's a kind of like a cheddar, I think like a cheddar kind of cheese with peppers in it, and it's slightly spicy. That's nacho cheese. I'm pretty sure it's a cheddar base. Could be wrong. Could be like some specific cheese known only in Mexico or something. I've never really looked that deeply into it. I probably could have for this show, but I just came up with the idea for this today. It's been a tough couple weeks with this cold I've had going on. So, and if you do it like the build your own way, then you have just a cup of melty, saucy cheese. It's like a cheesy sauce almost. And you take the tortilla chips, you dip them in. There you go. You got a nacho. Right? Dip and eat. Or you can go really elaborate with it. Pardon me. Still got a bit of a cough. You can go really elaborate with it, where you take a thin layer of tortilla chips on a plate or container. Then you pile on some cheese and some other toppings, like maybe some salsa or things like that. And then you put on another layer of chips, and then another layer of cheese and salsa and refried beans and whatever else. And eventually you have like 5-layer or 7-layer nachos, as they're sometimes called. And then every chip that you pick up is going to be layered with all these different bits of goodness. Taco sauce and salsa and ground beef and refried beans and cheese and whatever else you got there. I like to do that sometimes. I like to make big layered towers of nachos and just pile it on the plate. Some people just do like a variation of the dip style, where you take a bunch of the toppings and stick them in the middle of a plate in their own layers, and then you put the chips around them in a ring, so you can pick up the chip and dip them into this mountain of toppings and stuff. Right? And that's pretty good. And you'll find different forms of it. Like, so I like guacamole. I like guacamole on my nachos. But I like guacamole in a good majority of anything. Any of my food that's labeled Mexican food. Like tacos, burritos, that kind of stuff. I like guacamole. I like having guacamole in there. Now, I can't have the authentic cheese because, of course, lactose intolerant, as I've probably said on the show. So I have to come up with my own, alternatives and things. I use, excuse me, I use the vegan cheeses because those are dairy free. And even though I myself am not vegan, of course, and excuse me, it's gonna be that kind of show. And I figure it out. I haven't had a good melty vegan cheese yet. There's not much out there. There's a lot of sprinkly cheeses and sliced cheeses and things that are okay, but there's not a lot of melty, cheesy sauce things available for those who need the alternatives, like myself. They have dips, like they have cheese dips and things like that, but that's not quite the same. So the hunt continues, I suppose, for a good nacho cheese dip. Now, there's other things you can do that resemble nachos, but are not. Taco salad, for instance, is a lot like nachos, but it isn't nachos because of how it's made. Taco salad also has lettuce, which most regular nachos don't. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they do, depending on your preference. But most of the time they don't. And a taco salad also has everything all mixed together in a mass, and then it's let to sit so that the chips can kind of soften a bit and absorb the flavors of everything else you put in there. But there's a lot of other similar ingredients. You've got sometimes beans, you've got the ground beef, you've got the cheese and the salsa and different things in there. And but you also have lettuce, so it kind of counts. That's the only thing I think that makes it a salad, really. It has some lettuce in there. But yeah, nachos. I'm a big fan. And you can get nachos a lot of places. Like, here in the United States, most sporting events at their concession stands have nachos these days. And it's the dip style, where you have a side cup full of chips, full of tortilla chips, and then you have a smaller cup with dipping cheese. And we also have a lot of Mexican-themed restaurants in the United States. Now, there's been a lot of debate about that kind of stuff. A lot of people will say that most of the Mexican-themed foods that you get here in the United States are not actually ethnic Hispanic dishes, which I can see. But a lot of the restaurants here do sell some form of nachos. And then, of course, you got Taco Bell. Taco Bell, if you want fast food, you can get the nachos from there. And they have both kinds. They have the dip kinds, where you can just get a little bag of chips and a little cup of cheese. And then they also have, like, they call it their Supreme or their Bel Grande or whatever it is. And they've got, like, the refried beans and everything all piled up in a heap on top. And those are all right. Taco Bell nachos are okay. They're fast food. I mean, what do you expect? They're fast food. They're not like the world's greatest nachos. You're either better off, if you want really excellent nachos, you're better off making them yourself or going to a more authentic restaurant. Because Taco Bell is not an authentic Mexican restaurant. It's got good stuff. I eat there all the time. Not all the time. I eat there fairly regularly as far as fast food goes, which is to say maybe like once or twice a month. Maybe, something like that. But it's not authentic, as many people have said. It's Americanized. Just like Chinese food. There's a little bit of, to go off on a little bit of a tangent here, Chinese food here in the United States is not the same as authentic Chinese food that you tend to get from an actual... If you went to China and you got food there, it would be way different. And that's because what a lot of these people figured out when they came to the United States is that people who live here, who call themselves Americans, are very particular about what they like and what they don't like. And so they tailored their restaurants and their food to the American palate. And while it's bears like this passing resemblance to Chinese food, it's not like what you would actually get from China. Just like the Mexican food that you get here is not quite like what you would get if you actually went to Mexico. So nachos here, and I'm kind of interested now that I'm on the topic. I'm interested in finding out what a real authentic plate of nachos would look like. I might actually start looking up some recipes once I'm done with the show here, and start looking into making some homemade nachos that are more elaborate than what I usually do, that are actually more based on what you would get if you actually went to Mexico and got some nachos. But nachos are pretty popular in my household. I mean, everybody here likes nachos. My kid likes nachos, and I usually make them for her the same way I make them for myself. I take layer of chips, layer of cheese, layer of chips, layer of cheese. She's still a bit of a picky eater on some things, so she just eats the chips, the cheese, and sometimes some taco sauce. She doesn't want refried beans or any of that other kind of stuff. And her mom likes the whole, like, the whole 7 layers deal, but she doesn't eat meat. She's vegan, so she doesn't eat meat, so she has to eat, other stuff. So she gets beans and things. But we do end up, we do like nachos here. I mean, we like tortilla chips in general. Tortilla chips are great. And as a kid, I think I remember experimenting with other kinds of chips for nachos, thinking I was clever. They're not nachos, but they're just chips and cheese, but it still was pretty good. Like, generally, crinkle-cut potato chips work the best because they're cut a little thicker. They're about the thickness of a tortilla chip and about as robust. But they're super salty and super oily compared to a tortilla chip. Tortilla chips, like, the oil tends to fall off a little bit, and they're a little bit more crisp and a little bit more airy, whereas the potato chips are more condensed, more starchy, as befitting a potato chip. And so I can't eat as many, like, potato chips like that as I would tortilla chips, because it just, the oils and stuff, they mess with me. I don't like them. But yeah, I experimented a lot with those kind of things when I was a kid. Now, like I said, you can have them as an appetizer. Some people just have nachos. And a lot of, like, here in the United States, a lot of times you go to a Mexican restaurant, Mexican-themed restaurant, and they'll start you off with a basket of tortilla chips and salsa, chips and salsa, which is not exactly nachos, but, it's similar. And you get, like, a lot of times you'll get free baskets of those because you're waiting on your order and it's something to snack on. And then sometimes if you pay a little bit extra, you get you can get the queso, so it actually becomes more of a meal. But you can have it as a meal, like the big elaborate with every topping you can imagine on them. But you can also have them as a dessert. Now, when you have them as a dessert, you don't have the cheese and you don't have the salsa and things, unless you have, like, a sweet fruit salsa. I know tomato is a fruit. I understand that. But it doesn't count as, like, a sweet... You wouldn't turn tomatoes into a jelly or a jam. I mean, some people do, but you generally don't. But, like, mango salsa, if you make it more sweet. And then what people do is they fry the tortilla chips with cinnamon and sugar, so it's like churros, kind of. You fry the tortilla chips in cinnamon and sugar, and then you drizzle, like, you can drizzle caramel, or you can drizzle like chocolate, or you can drizzle fruit sauces and things on them, and then you have dessert nachos. And dessert nachos are pretty impressive. I haven't had them very often. I don't know if I've ever made them myself. I don't think I have, because I haven't made homemade tortilla chips. Well, I have tried a few times, but those involved me buying tortillas from the store, cutting them up, and trying to fry them, which I don't think is how it's done. But my culinary disasters aside, I have never made authentic, real tortilla chips at home, so I've never used like the cinnamon and sugar and things. So that might be something on the menu for the near future. It might be something on the menu for dessert nachos. And you can do a lot of different things with that. I would think a fruit-based salsa would be a great idea for dessert nachos. You could even make them still a little spicy. You could make them like a mango, but with a little bit of spice, a little bit of kick, but still sweet enough to be dessert, or something like that. I don't know. I just kind of made that part up, but I think it'd be good. So then you could have like a 3-course meal of all nachos. You could have the nacho and cheese appetizer. You could have the nacho and the Nachos Supreme giant plate with all the different toppings and things you can get on them. And you could have... What else could you have on them? You could have the dessert. You could have the dessert nachos, right? Clearly for dessert, obviously. And then you've got a 3-course meal. Sometimes people have tortilla soup, which is kind of like... It's kind of like nachos in a thin tomato-based soup. I don't know. I don't know if that really counts as nachos. It probably doesn't. I'm probably really stretching my nachability this time. But, yeah, you can at least do the 3 main things. You can do the appetizer, you can do the main dish, and you can do dessert. And that'd be great, like having all nacho dinner. It'd be a lot of tortilla chips, though. It would be a lot of tortilla chips. You almost would want something in between there to kind of break it up a little bit. But maybe not. Maybe if you really, really, really like tortilla chips, maybe you wouldn't mind. Yeah. But nachos. I love nachos. I think nachos are delicious. And they were... Before I found out I was lactose intolerant, which wasn't until my late 20s, maybe early 30s. It was pretty far along. When I was a kid, one of the staple things that I would get if I went to... Because I did marching band when I was in high school. And so we would go to all the high school football games and things like that, because you'd be up in the stands. And one of the things that I would get frequently while we were on a break, if we went down to the concession stand, where it was the nachos. And sometimes if I was out, like the few times I went to concerts before I figured out about the lactose intolerance, I would have nachos. So they've kind of been a thing that I've grown up with for quite a while. I'm a big fan of nachos. Big fan of Mexican food in general, or at least what passes for Mexican food here in the United States. I would like to have some authentic, actual, real Mexican food someday. I don't know if I ever want to actually go to Mexico. Not to talk bad about it at all, but Mexico is kind of a pretty dangerous country right now. At least close to the border, like the Mexico towns and resorts and things that are close to the U.S. border have a lot more crime, I think, than the southern parts of Mexico. Probably because more of the cities are in the north, and also because of the big problems we have in the United States, back and forth with like the illegal immigration and things like that, and people hopping the fences and the walls and stuff, and the drug running and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not putting blame on Mexico for that. I'm not saying like, oh, Mexico is bad because we get drugs from Mexico. I'm just saying there's a back and forth between their country and our country where this stuff flows back and forth, and neither country has been able to figure out a solution to it. Not to get like real serious on this discussion about nachos, of course, but so I don't know. I don't think I would ever actually go to Mexico, unfortunately, because there's other things to do in Mexico too. There's like the various cultural ruins and things that are there. I'm a big fan of ancient cultures and things like that, and you have the Aztecs and the Incas and the Mayans all down through Mexico and Central America, pardon me, and into South America. So there's a lot of stuff to see down there, and it's excellent views and vacation spots. But like I said, unfortunately, it's just it's a little dangerous for somebody from the U.S. So probably won't be doing that. But yeah, nachos. And this is going to be kind of a short one because, like I said, I still got the last bit of this cold, and you can hear me cough and sniff and different things, and wheeze a little bit. And I don't want to cough in your ears too much. But I wanted to make sure I got an episode in because I had to skip last week's episode, and I don't want to make a habit about that. I want to make sure we've got regular episodes all the time. Excuse me. I guess that's my sign to wrap this up here. But yeah, nachos. If you have a favorite nacho story or a nacho dish or something involving nachos that you would like to talk to me about, then drop a comment on this broadcast on YouTube or anywhere else that allows comments. I don't know if you can comment on the podcasts on Apple and Amazon and iHeart and all those other places. If you can, by all means, drop me a comment. Or you can send me an email at... That's not the email. The email is uncannyspiritsclub@gmail.com, because that was what I had first before I started branching out into all the different things that I do. The Uncanny Spirits Club was the centerpiece for everything I was doing on YouTube and whatnot, and now I've expanded into the podcast. I've expanded into different things. So, but send me an email or find me on my Spider Does Things page. Oh my goodness, a bunch of robots just fell over. I have robots in my house. And Spider Does Things page on Facebook, and you can drop a comment there as far as nachos, and I would love to hear your nacho stories or recipes. Share your nacho recipes. Some people get real simple, some people get real elaborate. I'd love to hear them. And that's all I got. So I'm going to say goodnight and get some more water from my throat here. And I will see you guys on Twitch tomorrow, which is Tuesday, as of this broadcast here. And it'll be another Twitch Tuesday, and I don't know what I'm doing. I have no idea. Who knows? I might play a game, I might not. I'm still finishing up Dead Space 3, so maybe I'll do some more of that, maybe I won't. Who knows? Anyway, I will see you guys otherwise next week for another episode of Let's Talk About This. Have a good one.